celebrity level confidence. Right?
Yeah, it's interesting. This word confidence comes up a lot in sales and manifesting, just in life in general. People want to feel more confident. But I think it's important to dissect what actual confidence looks and feels like, because I don't think it feels like anything, honestly. You know, a lot of people come to me and they're like, Anthony, you're so confident on your videos. You're so confident when you run your group calls. But meanwhile, I'm still thinking thoughts like, do these people want to hear what I have to say? Am I saying the right thing? Is it landing right? So I don't feel confident in the moment. It comes across as confident because I'm doing something that I know how to do, and I've done thousands of repetitions of it. And so I always say to people, it's like Taylor Swift. Taylor Swift performs in front of tens of thousands of people. If she got off stage and you were like, Taylor, you were so confident up there, she would just be like, I'm just doing what I do. I perform. It's who I am. And so it gets into this conversation of identity and having confidence in yourself. And it's really not confidence, it's trust. So trusting that you know your shit and that you can execute on your shit that you already know and do it effectively. And really, when you focus on serving others and you focus on giving more than you're getting, it actually gives you freedom to just be you, to be authentic, to like mess up, to fail. As I know you talk about a lot, is like fail fast, do the thing, shoot your shot, because you learn and refine constantly. And when you are more outward focused and you are inward focused, it gives you that freedom. It gives you that a little bit more buffer room to mess up, because it's not all about you. You know, in your heart, you're serving others. So I don't know. I just think there's something to taking quick, decisive action, but that has to stem first from a trust in yourself. And it also has to be a motivation towards helping others, not just you.
It almost sounds like you're saying that confidence or being confident inherently speaks to acting as if and, putting that facade on. Mm-hmm. When the people who are truly confident, the celebrity keynote speaker, the most famous pop musicians, they don't think about being confident because they live it, because their identity embodies that confidence, right?
Yeah. And I think acting as if, faking it till you make it, is like the worst advice. Because you end up feeling like an imposter, you end up doubting yourself because there's an incongruence with how you feel and how you're trying to present yourself. And people can see right through that. This is why, and we'll get into this today, is like how I went viral, how I attracted millions of people from across the world to not only follow me, but many of them to buy stuff from me and to hire me for my services. It came from a place of congruency with who I am, how I see myself, and how I relate to the world and the people around me. So when you act as if, when you fake it till you make it, you're never going to make it, because you're inherently incongruent with the reality that you want, because you're not genuinely that type of person. So like you've worked with Damon John from NBC's Shark Tank, right? Mm-hmm. One of the things I remember you telling me, which really has been a constant reminder for me, is his ability to take like his 60-minute keynote that he knows like the back of his hand and take out a 5-minute section of that at any point and apply it to any context or situation that he's in.
I love talking about this.
Yeah. Well, he's only able to do that because he knows his stuff. He knows it inside and out. And so part of it is knowing it inside and out, and that comes through doing the repetitions. That allows him to present as confident, even though he may not feel some sort of energetic alignment with confidence or whatever that means.
Have you ever been like super obsessed with a singer or a musician?
Yeah.
And where to the point where you followed their concerts or followed their interviews, right? Like you engaged with their album, you loved it, so you're like, oh, I gotta hear them on. For me, it was rappers, so I'd go listen to their interview on Hot 97, and then they're doing the media circuit. They're doing the junket, they call it. So then they hit up Hot 97, then they hit up Power 106, then they hit up all these different stations and TV shows, and they're being interviewed. That's the same thing that Damon John from Shark Tank has, really inspired me on, which is being able to have those talking points to pull from. You'll hear the music artist who's going on the press junket pull the same stories. Jamie Foxx does a really good job of this. He's telling the same stories, but he's being prompted by different interviewers throughout the entire time. And the same thing goes for content creation. So if you're able to, number one, focus on your writing, right? whether you're writing out loud like you and I are doing right now, using a notepad to write an outline, but really just freestyling in the moment, coming up with those talking points, or you're actually sitting down at the computer and writing. Being able to develop those plot points, storylines, talking points is essential for any kind of content creator or entrepreneur who's engaged in speaking to be able to hit, because then when you're in an interview setting, when you're on a panel, when you're doing talking points, video content creating, you're able to pull from, and like you say, the repetitions are what makes the story more engaging. Never tell a story for the first time. Yeah. So that is a major key for content creation.
Yeah, we have a little bit of an issue here because we're putting the cart before the horse, right? Because we're talking about strategy, which is inherently where people go to first. So like, I want another podcast. I want the right growth hack. I want the right content strategy. I got to listen to another mentor course or whatever, right? They're constantly searching for more information, more tactics, more strategy. But the problem is not the strategy. It's not your content. It's who you are internally. It's your self-concept. It's your identity, because everything flows from your identity. I say this a million different ways in all my content and all my courses. You have to become a different version of you before your habits and behaviors ultimately reflect that new identity. And when I say identity, I'm saying identity as the sum total of someone's subconscious programming. You could use this synonymously with mindset. Mindset is set of mental programs. I use mental programs and subconscious programs the same way. We are made up of our beliefs and fears. That makes up us. Specifically, the beliefs that we have about ourselves is really what we encapsulate in this term self-concept or self-image identity, right? And so when you look at identity and how that informs your habits and behaviors, well, then you automatically assume or understand that your habits and behaviors dictate your outcomes. But it's not just the binary action of posting content, because there is somewhat of an esoteric, energetic, emotional thing going on. Because you can say the same thing, but say it in two different ways. One way is going to make you go viral, and the other way is going to kind of repel people from watching your stuff. So there is an energy to it. There's an emotion to it. There's a trust to it, a self-trust. But that all stems from the beliefs that you have. For example, let's say you have a belief that like selling is sleazy because you think that all salespeople are like used car salesmen. Well, do you think you're going to get up and confidently sell yourself on your content? No. You may sell yourself from a script perspective because you've figured out the framework and the content strategy in selling yourself. But if you inherently believe that selling is bad, you're not going to show up congruently. Your energy is not going to be there. People are going to see right through it, through micro expressions, through how you articulate yourself. And so you're going to fall flat from that perspective. Same thing if you have a fear of being seen or a fear of being heard. And these are probably the three biggest fears that are holding people back from going viral and growing their business.
Break it down.
And by the way, this is so important for anybody watching because invisibility pays minimum wage. I can promise you that, right? So if you are invisible online, you are going to be getting paid minimum wage whether you own your own business or not. And worse than minimum wage, actually, I think is the people making $10,000 a month as an entrepreneur because they just have a glorified job that they actually work twice as hard and twice as much than a person who has an actual job getting paid the same amount. And the way you get out of that minimum wage or even that $10,000 a month level is by expanding your reach. And the fastest and easiest way to do that is, of course, with social media and marketing and advertising, specifically on the internet. Now, if you have one of these three beliefs, the first is, or fears rather, if you have one of these fears, the first is the fear of selling because you believe at some level that selling is sleazy. The second is the fear of being seen or heard, right? So maybe this happened with my generation. I'm 35 now, but a lot of times we were told to be seen and not heard, right? Just be there, don't make a lot of commotion, right? Don't put yourself out there. And then the other is like a belief that you don't deserve to be successful. This comes down to self-worth issues, things like that. So if you don't believe that you're worthy of success, if you don't believe that people care what you have to say and you're afraid to put yourself out there and you're afraid that you're going to sound sleazy or seem sleazy because you're selling something, does that sound like a recipe for going viral and reaching millions of people? Probably not. So those are the 3 beliefs and fears that people need to work on first.
The undeserving belief is crazy, but I want to discuss one of the beliefs that you just brought up, which is the fear of being seen or heard, because I deal with this on a daily basis with entrepreneurial content creation. People come in the door here to this content creation agency, and I see it in 3 different levels. They are either, like you said, over the top, salesy, sleazeball, insecure, just unconfident, unable to deliver, or the middle, which would be the right way, which is just your truest self, just providing value. And obviously that's apparently, everyone right now who's listening would say, yeah, obviously I want to just be my truest self. But, sometimes it's hard when the lights and the cameras and the action is all taking place right in front of you. So if I could give an entrepreneur or a content creator a tip, it would be what do you do when you get ready in the morning? Do you go about your day worrying how you look, what your outfit is? No, you set it and forget it. So you got to do the same thing with content creation. Get ready, get prepared, sit down and do your thing and don't worry about it. Take the risk, be your fullest self, because guess what? At the end of the day, you are in control of your content creation. You are in control of what ends up out on the internet. So you have nothing to fear. You have nothing to fear. And actually, you're holding yourself back by being afraid of the way you look and sound, because at the end of the day, if you're providing value to the viewer or the audience, you are merely a shuttle for information. You are just a vessel in which the consumer is going to either pull some kind of value or entertainment or education from what you're providing. You got to step outside of yourself.
Yeah.
And just do it.
And as I said before, you only have to be 10% better or know 10% more than the person you're talking to be 100% of service. Right. So many people have this belief that they're not smart enough or not good enough, or they haven't achieved enough. And so they don't feel confident. There's that word again. They don't feel confident posting content. Right. Well, if you're helping somebody in any capacity, whether that's delivering information, whether that's making them feel better in a certain way, whether that's guiding them in a way that's going to get them to their goal faster, even if it's 1% faster, you are being of service. And here's the other thing. What I have found through my social media career of attracting literally millions of people is that just me posting has inspired people, not even my content. When they find out that, oh, Anthony, you have 1 million followers, you posted 3 times a day, every day for 6 months, you go live all the time, they don't care what I'm talking about. They're like, how do I do that? That's inspiring. And sometimes, and I've had people tell me, especially some of my friends, are like, Anthony, just by seeing you do it, I know that I can do it. And we've talked about proximity in the past. When you're in proximity to confidence, when you're in proximity to creativity, like that's a gift that you have, is this creative gift. It makes the person and people around you that much more creative, that much more confident. And so, I mean, it goes back to that cliche of, your network is your net worth. I just created my very own Hypnosis app where you can literally have me in your back pocket to help you lose weight faster, make more money, and make your success inevitable. I've combined ancient wisdom and modern day neuroscience to create this app where you can literally reprogram your own subconscious mind for success. To get started today, click the link below and grab your free 7-day trial. I'll see you on the inside.
People call me every day and we talk about content creation. I'm going to say exactly what you need to do if you want to increase your followers on social media. And this is what I've done, and I was able to gain a couple thousand followers with minimum effort. Okay. I took the content that I already had and I broke it down into short clips simply. And I dropped all of it at once as trial reels in order for the algorithm to inform me of which content will work the best. Then the app tells you this one's good, share it to everyone. So then I shared it to everyone. Then that video did almost 2 million views. Then I'm getting followers organically that way. Then I take that video, and this is the Gary V method, and then you pay to promote it more. The video already worked organically. I put $60 to sponsor that video to send it to more people, and I got another hundreds of followers from that. So if you want to pay for followers, that's the way to do it. You got to have good content. got to be confident. You got to know who you are. You got to have a story to tell. Put it out there, and then you're going to grow in followers. That's just the way to do it.
Yeah, for those watching or listening, Bryce doesn't know it yet, but we're gonna we're gonna partner on our next course. By the time this comes out, this is my goal: is that I'm gonna create the 9-day viral creator. I had the 9-day master manifester. People love that kind of format, so we're gonna do the 9-day viral creator. And why I want to do it with you is because you know so much strategy, right? You know the tactical side of things.
I'm finding this out in real time.
In real time. But by the time this episode comes out, we'll have this live. I know the mindset, and you need both. And I have said this before. It's most important that you have the mindset before you have the strategy, because you'll never execute on the strategy if you don't have the mindset to support it. Your mindset, your identity, your subconscious programming is only as useful as the action you take because of it. So what you're referring to when you tell people these step-by-step methods and processes is action. And the reason people don't take that action as quickly and as effectively and as consistently as they should be is because of the underlying fears and beliefs they have. So this 9-day viral creator program or course that we'll be launching is going to help people identify what are the subconscious beliefs and fears they have that are not congruent with going viral and stuffing your pockets full of cash, which, by the way, that's not all it's about. People see my videos with like my G-Wagon and stuff. My financial success and my material success in the form of like my car is simply a physical manifestation of all the work I've done inward, right? So I've become successful internally. I've become abundant internally. And so now I experience that in the form of physical wealth and things, but I no longer place the same value on those things. It's easy for me to say because I've done it. But that being said, we're going to get people to unlock like that true viral creator inside of them, because everybody has it. I'm not special. I just reprogrammed my subconscious mind in a way that allowed me to show up confidently and to put in the repetitions consistently. And I got the result because it's all input and output.
Yeah, and I know that you were, attempting for a long time. And that's really how you get to that. What you're talking about is putting the reps in, putting the 10,000 hours in. And it's amazing that we can look back at that so recently and literally recall when Anthony Serino posted 3 times a day and tested different types of content and went from 0 to 1 million followers. I mean, the same thing can be said for, I have videos where we were discussing, look, months before I walked in the bar and asked the guy from Shark Tank to be on a podcast, and we literally, 10x the growth of this company. We were putting out content on social media before Reels were really the thing. TikTok had already started, and Instagram was incentivizing the user to put out Reels. So they were literally paying for spins, and the monetization was you were getting a higher rate of pay for viral content on Instagram because Instagram wanted to compete with TikTok. Once they got the user base to do Reels, then they took away that incentive. But it was really amazing to see and to be on the forefront of that and to see the viral ability for certain types of content and what works and what doesn't, and really workshopping on the ground level of something. And looking out for those trends is really how you can capitalize on it. Because, you came to a TikTok market where, and you can speak to this, when it was kind of like a blue ocean in the sense that it was like COVID TikTok changed a lot of careers and created a lot of super influencers. Wouldn't you agree?
Yeah, when you say that, the limiting belief that's going to come up for people is like, oh, I'm too late.
No, but the next thing's coming, right?
Well, not even the next thing. People can still benefit from TikTok. Did I get in at a fortunate time? Maybe, but at the time when I got in TikTok 3 years ago now, I thought I was late at first. Mm-hmm. That was a limiting belief I had. And then when I did all this subconscious reprogram, I was like, screw it. If I'm late, I'm late. Let me try anyways, And so, I remember the day, like I could look back and I could like put all my followers on like a Post-it note. It was like my grandmother, my wife, a couple of my friends. My videos would get 42 views, and it would mostly be them and like my aunt like leaving her phone open and just my video playing on repeat, like had no views, no engagement. And I was posting the same content that I'm posting now, but it was the energy, the confidence behind it. It was the elimination of the fear that I think, I see it because the proof's in the pudding. Not only did it have a real world tangible result in the form of my accounts blowing up and me gaining worldwide recognition, but also it happened because of, I think, some the invisible quantum energetic side of things, which if you've been in this game long enough, especially people who have reached that like top 1% level success, there's things that happen that they cannot reverse engineer. Call it luck, call it serendipity, call it divine intervention. There's something that happens, and this is why I always say action increases your surface area for luck and for these things to occur. But there's something that happens that you can't put in a wheelbarrow, meaning it's not tangible. You can't create a formula around it. But the catalyst for it is the right belief systems that then propel you forward and allow those other things to occur.
I'm telling you right now that I can reverse engineer the intangible that you're talking about, because it's simple. So many people are incapable of really assessing why. Ask yourself, why do I want more followers? And the answer doesn't have to be virtuous. It doesn't have to be moral. It doesn't fucking matter. If you can actually identify for yourself why and answer that question, you can do it, right? You can achieve that goal. It's the same thing, Patrick Bet-David talks about it at his conference, where like you do a personal identity audit before you even engage in like any kind of the entrepreneurial mastermind strategy building. It's literally like, who do you want to be? It doesn't matter who do you want to be in your life? Do you want to have a family? Do you want to, work for someone else? Do you want to be the number 2 to someone else? Do you want to be the $1 billion guy who is the CEO and founder? Are you that person? Do you want to marry someone who's rich? Like, do you want to be a person who gets rich from suing people? Like, tell yourself what it is, and because then you'll do it. It doesn't matter if it's perceived as bad or if it's wrong or just fucking identify truthfully what the reason is and then you can do it. It gets you that much closer. So if you want to get more followers because you want to look cool and be more popular, write that down. That's a real reason. That's a real reason. It doesn't matter. You don't have to want to change the world or save people's lives or provide value. If you want to be popular, then tell yourself that. You know why? Because that's going to inform your decision making and inform which kind of action you take to achieve your goal. All I give a fuck about is helping people achieve their goal for content. So if you want to be famous and you come in to Q29 and you say, look, Bryce, I want to be famous. Let's start locally and then make it globally. I want to be famous because I want to be popular. I want to be, I want to have likes and followers. And I want to be hot. I want to be known to everyone that I'm attractive. Great. Now we're that much closer to figuring out how to do it. Instead of you coming in like, I want to, I think I'm going to be, I want to have a talk show, or I want to have a podcast, or I want to, talk about realty or whatever it is. Like, just get to the root cause. If it's to make more money, you get the point.
Well, it goes back to what I always say is, an inventor doesn't invent a product without an intention, I just sold a t-shirt, by the way. I just see this. I've become the type of person that just makes money passively because I created this Amazon business, I don't know, back in 2017. It just pays me almost every day and I don't touch it anymore.
And all of these things are a work in progress. Like right now, hey, Sean's on the camera right now, my partner at Q29. And maybe we need to turn the brightness down a little bit because it's just blasting on my big ass forehead. Content creation tip: it's never perfect, and you cannot chase perfection. Just do shit. I'm sure when you first started putting stuff out, when I first started putting stuff out, it was trash, but we learned.
But let's talk about the why real quick.
Yeah.
Don't lie to yourself about the why. It doesn't have to be altruistic. Do I personally believe that the more altruistic and outward facing your goals are, the better for you? Yeah, of course. I believe in the law of reciprocity. I also believe spiritually, energetically, emotionally, tangibly, when you focus just on the dollar for dollar exchange or service for dollar exchange between you and the person either watching you or the person hiring you or paying you, you're closing the loop. It stops right there, right? When you say, I'm just going to give, and I'm going to give as much as possible to whoever, to the best of my ability and to whatever capacity I can, it doesn't matter if they pay you immediately. It's going to come back to you in other ways, and it's going to come back to you exponentially in greater proportion than had you closed the loop focusing on, oh, I did an hour of work, so I have to make sure I get exactly this amount of money, right? People are too strict on this dollar for dollar, time for dollar, value for dollar exchange. I think people need to be more fluid with how they serve the people in the world around them. I mean, I say this all the time. Everybody I coach who has a business or is a coach like me, so I still do free sessions for people. I still give away my stuff for free. I still volunteer. And I'm not saying like, oh, righteous is me. It's just like, one, I enjoy it, but I've also seen the physical proof that when you do that, you get paid back far beyond what you would have gotten paid back for like the hourly rate that you charge.
So break it down. Why? Why are people, why are people so strict on their providing?
Yeah, I think it's probably scarcity first. When you're making, let's say you're making less than $100,000 a year, like $0 to $100,000 a year, you're like in scarcity mode. Every dollar you make is important. So you have to for some extent, like, oh, if I do this job, I have to get paid for it because it's a matter of paying your bills or not. But it becomes this paradox because you're stuck in that scarcity mindset. You're stuck in this like, oh, if I don't get paid right now, or I don't get the my value in this moment, then I'm never going to get it. And so my point is that it's happening usually out of scarcity, out of a fear of it not continuing. Like the faucet of abundance going to get turned off in the future. And it's not that way. When you give, generosity, I mean, all the ancient religions talk about this. The Bible talks about this. Gary Vee talks about it. His book, Jab, 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 Right Hook, right? That's the name of his book. He's saying give and then ask, But what I have found, you don't even need to ask it somewhere. You give enough. I've given so much free content and value online that people literally ask me, Anthony, how do I buy something for you? How do I give you? I'm surprised, there's probably been people that have tried to like Venmo me just randomly, but like I never accept that. Yeah, but my point is like when you just give relentlessly, it comes back to you in really beautiful ways that you couldn't engineer otherwise.
Yeah, I've seen it too. And you have to have the confidence, I feel, in yourself. I think there's two levels of profit, personal profit, so to speak. I think it comes from probably mainly it comes from being paid for something you do. But then when you can reach the level of being paid for who you are, I think you can't reach that level until you're, cognizant of that. So, I think step one, it literally comes from providing value and speaking on your expertise. I don't think there's a better way to educate people that you are a thought leader in a space without talking about it. I mean, that's why so many people find value in what we provide at this content creation agency, is because you need to, get good at articulating what you do and discussing it. It's really easy to tell someone who's really living it versus someone who's faking it when they come into this studio to discuss what they do, because, it separates the real from the fake.
Well, and it's also okay to like put being fake aside to be authentic and acknowledge that you don't know everything. When I talk to salespeople who are just starting out, right, in a certain industry or wherever, a business owner who's just opening a business, it's okay to say to your prospects and your customers, like, oh yeah, we're just starting out. Like we're still learning the ropes. I'm going to help you to the best of my ability. I'm going to do right by you. But we're learning too. And that comes across as authentic, right? When you're a little vulnerable, you don't have to be like this, chest out, like big bravado entrepreneur. Like you have to know everything, because you're actually going to turn people away.
Yeah. Some of the people at the, that's an energy that like no one really wants to be around, for sure. And that's definitely, there's a place for that, I think, in hustle culture, content creation, but really, people can see through the bullshit. I mean, look, you're going to get hated on regardless.
Yeah.
We have a client that we just produced content for, like I'm talking like weeks ago, and they released something and it's got like hundreds of thousands of views. And it's just a female realtor talking about how she got started, and she literally had to like turn the comments off, disengage with the post, completely remove herself from it because the comments were so hateful. So I'm just saying, like, prepare for that regardless. Like, you have to have this kind of undying confidence, and it goes back to the confidence piece, right? The confidence of a celebrity. Think about what's going to happen when you do get followers and views. You're going to get a percentage of the people who are hating on you, you know, and for whatever reason that is, whether it's justified or it's whether they hate their life, you know, 90% of the time it's a keyboard warrior behind that, you know, that comment, that hate comment, but that's going to come and you got to prepare for that. And if you can stand on the confidence that you know what you're talking about and you know that you're providing value, you're going to be able to succeed then.
Yeah. I mean, here's the thing too. Confidence is largely based on evidence. You know, this is why putting the repetitions is so important. Like, I get so many messed up comments and DMs and hate messages, right? But it doesn't even faze me because the evidence of the contrary outweighs those negative messages. And so I no longer believe it at any level because I have more evidence for the positive than the negative. You know, and here's the thing, if you're ever triggered by something, if you ever feel fear or anxiety or self-doubt about something, or it's triggered by something that someone else said, it's because you subconsciously believe it at some level.
Are you sure?
Yeah. I mean, the example that's, I think, pretty cliche is like, if I was like, Bryce, I hate your purple hair, you would just laugh, you know, because it's like, it's just not true. Or if someone I'm 6'5", if someone said, Anthony, you're so short, just, you know. But if someone said, Anthony, you know, you're fat, I'm not the epitome of health right now, and I still have a little bit of weight to lose. So subconsciously, I'm like, oh yeah, maybe I should lose a little weight, you know. And that self-doubt starts coming up, you know. So some level, I believe part of what they're saying, which triggers the anxiety, triggers the self-doubt, fear, etc.
But as a viral creator, as yourself, who gets hundreds of comments per day across various platforms, how do you, you know, process that? How do you remain confident? And what do you say to that, you know?
Well, I have a couple 100 million views.
Yeah, and why do I look at that one negative comment when I got 50 good ones? Why am I fixated on the negative one?
Well, most people don't have enough evidence, I don't think. Going back to that word is, and one, it's not, maybe not they don't have enough evidence, is that their brain has deleted the evidence. So one of the things I've talked about in my mindset modification course is this idea that when you have a belief running or a fear, what your brain does is it generalizes, deletes, and distorts. So to generalize, meaning, you know, one bad comment comes in and someone says you're stupid, then you think, everybody thinks I'm stupid, or I'm always so stupid, I never know what I'm talking about. So you kind of think and speak in these generalizations about yourself that are congruent with the belief or fear. So that's generalizing. So you have generalize, delete, and distort. Let's go to distort first. So let's say you have a belief that you are stupid and no one wants to hear what you have to say because of some negative comment that came in and it's triggering that belief system and that fear. Well, let's say you do get a positive comment on one of your videos. You then distort that because it's not congruent with the belief that you're stupid and no one wants to hear what you have to say because they said something positive. And so your brain goes, oh, that was just a one-off thing. Oh, they just saw one video of mine, but all my other videos are probably bad. They're not going to like my other videos. So now it's distorting the evidence for the contrary to their belief or fear. The last thing it does is it deletes. And so let's say you have a belief inherently that you're not good enough, smart enough, talented enough, no one wants to hear you or see you, you're stupid. Well, then once you get all these positive comments, your brain literally negatively hallucinates it. Doesn't even store it neurologically. It's like you're wearing glasses right now. Until I probably just brought your awareness to your glasses, your brain was negatively hallucinating them on your face. You couldn't even feel them. You couldn't even see them until you brought your awareness to it. Same thing for opportunity. Same thing for positive evidence in your life. If someone says or believes that they're unlucky, they will literally negatively hallucinate a $100 bill on the ground, even though they pass right by it, because of them finding that $100 bill is not congruent with the belief that they're unlucky. That's how powerful the brain is. So you will always, your physical reality is very literally a manifestation of your internal reality.
All right. Break this down for me. I'm interested. As we go on here at Q29 Content Creation and Podcasting, we've been obviously experimenting through content creation and posting on social media. And as we've gone on, we've had more and more frequency in viral hits. So we work with these clients and they come in and they say, hey, Bryce, like, listen, like we're going to do this many reels. We're going to break down our podcast into doing this, where we're going to just put out this content in hopes of going viral. But now it's happening more and more frequently. And I'm seeing that a client will kind of like put the brakes on their freedom in creating as soon as it starts to pop off. Right. And I want you to discuss with me what you believe related to that, whether it's a limiting belief or whether it's like certain like internal fears. Basically, people come in, they're like, yeah, like we're going to do content. Hopefully it works. I'm like, no, it's going to work. And then it works. And then it's hundreds of thousands of views. And then people are like, wait, now I want to overanalyze this. Wait, I want to cut that out. They want to cut out stuff and they want to kind of censor themselves now that it's actually getting seen. And that's actually limiting the potential virality of their content. So it's inherently like, you know, it's like having their foot on the gas and the brake at the same time, as you say, because now they're like, you know, that real organic, authentic self that once was, that went viral, is now self-censoring because of the fear. So I always, what I say to them is, hey, listen, like, you know, from the 100 people who commented something bad, like there's another 100 who found value and thought positively of this video. So don't you want to just like focus on them? Why do you think people are self-censoring once they know that they have potential virality with some viral hits?
Because they've learned probably at a young age that being seen or being exposed is unsafe. And so that leads into their fear of judgment and what are people thinking? What do they look like? How are they presenting themselves? And this goes back to an inherent need that we all have for validation and acceptance. When you think about tribal times, if you weren't liked or you were combative, you were cast out, which meant certain death. You know, it's a survival mechanism to desire community and validation and acceptance. So anytime someone comes to me and says, Anthony, I have this need for validation. Yeah, no shit. We all do.
Right.
Like it's a biological drive for survival. Now the intensity of it is the issue. You know, if you're a constant people pleaser and you're putting everybody else's needs before your own, and you're not posting on social media for your business because you're afraid of what people will think and you need that validation, you don't want to risk that acceptance, well, then that's an issue, right? Because we're not in tribal times anymore. And the government, and at least here in the US, it's very hard to hit rock bottom, even if you mess up dramatically. And that's what I always ask people too, is like, what's the worst case scenario?
Yeah,
like,
exactly.
You try, you fail. Worst case scenario is maybe you go bankrupt. You know what? You get a waiting gig somewhere and start serving. Like, that's not the end of the world. You know, like most people catastrophize worst case scenario, and would it suck? Of course. Would I hate to go work at the local diner again, like I did when I was, 18 years old? Yeah, I wouldn't want to do that, but I would just do what I have to do to pick back up. But I think the fear of being seen is the initial root cause that makes them stop posting, stop putting themselves out there once they start getting traction, because now it's real. Now they're hit in the face with the exposure. And so they'll recoil. They'll go back under their rock emotionally, subconsciously, and then not put themselves out there and find every excuse why they need to change their content or not post as much or switch gears, switch directions. When you're sitting there like, we just got you 100,000 views. We just got you 10 more leads or 5 new clients. Objectively, that's a great result, but they're sitting there second guessing it because it's actually triggering that fear of exposing and being seen.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's preventing them from being their truest self. It's like everyone, they're seeking perfection. I could talk about it all day long, Well,
here's the problem too, is there's some real, what you might classify as objective downsides to being internet famous. I mean, I've been recognized in public. How many times have I been recognized in public without someone telling me they recognize me and I'm there picking my nose or something, And I'm like saying that half jokingly, but it's serious, So there is kind of this identity you have to be in, and there's like this fearlessness and this like F it mindset that comes with knowing that millions of people follow you. The county that we're in right now in New York, we have just under 300,000 people. I have like 5 times the amount of people following me online than in this county, which is crazy, So like, of course that's going to trigger things inside of me. And that's why systematically you got to work through those beliefs and fears. And I still do my own work because every level there's a different devil, right?
That's right.
Every level of success, every financial level, you're going to be triggered at some subconscious point that's going to highlight to you a different fear or belief that you need to resolve. And sometimes you may be okay from 0 to 100,000 or 0 to 300,000, let's say, in financially. And then all of a sudden you start getting over that $300,000 a year range, and all of a sudden that triggers the not good enough, not deserving of success. Money shouldn't come this easily. Money doesn't grow on trees sort of thing. And now you start sabotaging your efforts.
Really? It could be triggered later on. It doesn't always have to be fundamental.
Yeah, everybody's financial temperature is different.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. Your financial temperature is 130 Fahrenheit.
I mean, my financial temperature is pretty high also because I've detached from the financial side of things. I live in a house, like my house is very modest. I live in a small house right in town here. My car payment is 3 times the amount of my mortgage because I have a low mortgage on my house. I love my house. I have real estate properties and a bunch of tenants that pay for those mortgages. And I like driving a nice car because that's like a trophy of my success. And I enjoy nice cars and, driving fast sometimes, So there's no right or wrong way to do it, but I've detached from it. Like I could lose everything tomorrow and just be like, okay, so what? I'll do it again, or I won't do it. And like, I'm as much peace then as I am now. So
I was thinking about for some reason I was thinking about questions that I would ask Damon John on a podcast. I think the universe is sending him back over here to the studio for a podcast soon. And because a question popped up in my brain and I wanted to ask him, like with the modern age, right? It's not 1980 anymore. If someone did the same thing as you, to build the $1 billion fashion brand, would they be successful today? And, I think I knew the answer. I do that a lot. When I think about what questions I want to ask you and different people who I interview, I think about what their answer might be. And that informs how I can make the question better. That's a kind of a podcast host tip, is like think through your questions and try to get really good on it. But I think the answer would be that like if someone did the same exact things that Damon John did in 1989, if they did them today, would it work? No. But if they had the same hustler type energy and the kind of like all or nothing in them that it takes to make it, if they had that same identity today, they would make it, right? Mm-hmm. Is fashion the same? No. Is hand-to-hand sales in New York the same as it was 40 years ago? No. But would that hungry person still win? Yes. It's an interesting thought.
Well, I think the mindset precedes the success, and what made Damon John successful was his willingness to like stand out on the street corner and sell hats or whatever, right? Like it's not the fact that he sold hats on the street corner. It was his willingness to do so and to do whatever it takes. So for someone else, for me, I was willing to just put myself out there on social media. That was my selling on the street corner. And that's what it is in the digital age now. So
1,000%. Same for me, putting myself out there. There's people that are watching this right now that saw me putting out music and putting out videos that were cringe, and it's interesting because Sean and I and Morgan and Matt here at Q29 went from, when we would talk about what we do every day, content creation, podcasting, when we would talk about it with our loved ones and people on our network, when we started this, people didn't know, they didn't understand. And it's perceived that we went from no one understanding what we do to everyone thinking that we were an overnight success. And that part's fascinating to me because it's the perception that really matters, and we just knew. So that kind of like delusional belief in what we're doing and understanding the market that, listen, like no one necessarily else needs to understand the market because they're not creating a business in it. But to go from, it's kind of like a mind fuck to go from people being like, yeah, but like, what's your plan B, to like, holy shit, I can't believe how successful you are. It does something to you, and I think it's interesting to think about.
I really want us to find a business owner, maybe here in the Hudson Valley, it could be anywhere, who doesn't have a big following, who's somewhat already successful in their business, like they know what they're doing, and they agree to like let me do the subconscious work for them. They agree to follow your strategy and also some of the strategy that I teach them. I guarantee we could turn them into a celebrity, if you will, on the internet.
That sounds like a TV show.
It should be, right? But see, I mean, here's the whole thing. The whole like fame, success thing, it's a formula, And some people may be like, Anthony, why are you not more famous? Why don't you have more money? I probably could if I focused on it, because you don't get what you want, you get what you focus on. I'm just not focused on scaling that much more. What I'm focused on right now is like my Hypnosis app, helping more people find like things like hypnosis more affordably, more accessibly. And that matters to me. You know, like I personally think that once you start making over 30,000, like $25,000 to $40,000 a month, anything beyond that, like what do you need it for? You know, sure, some people want those things, but what ends up happening is the material success ends up becoming something you hang your self-worth hat on. And then it goes away because everything physically disappears and you're 80 years old and you realize you worked too long and too much for something that's just going to rust anyways. And you realize you didn't harbor and nurture valuable relationships and love and peace and calmness in your life. And then you're like, oh, I wasted all that time on chasing the wrong things. And so you end up feeling worse in the long run. So not to get too philosophical there, but here's the thing too. I want to kind of put a cap on this is every time you hesitate to hit the post button, someone is lapping you who has half your talent, who has half your expertise, who has half your knowledge in your industry. And so like I always say, even on your worst hair day, like you could outshine somebody who's literally cashing a 6-figure check in their business in the time it took you to post a 60-second video because of your hesitation. So hesitation kills your reach. And what's most important about this is that if you can't market what you do better than you do what you do, it's very difficult to be successful now in this day and age of the digital world. You have to be a marketer first. I'm not a mindset coach. I'm not a hypnotist. I am, but I'm first a marketer of those things. And I've gotten really good at expanding my reach and getting as many eyeballs on me and my products and services as possible. And then it just becomes an input and output. You know, it's a numbers game.
I tell people all the time, content creators, entrepreneurs, I say, if you're the best at what you do, you need to be creating and you need to be storytelling and you need to be doing it with the highest quality. That's why people come and work with us. But, you know, when I started telling my stories about working with Damon John from Shark Tank, being mentored by him, being his content coordinator, traveling all over the world, I didn't go viral. I was just talking about it, hoping that people relate. And I drilled on it again and again. And I told the story again in a different way. And I told it to people who walked in the door. I told it on Instagram. I told it on Facebook. I told it in long format. I told it in short form again and again and again because nobody knew who I was until it was the only thing that people knew about me. And, you know, I was able to create a multiple 6-figure business out of that, multiple 6-figure podcast studio by just sharing my story and hoping it resonated with people. But, you know, it speaks to a talking point that you bring up all the time, which is nobody knows who you are. And you don't need to go viral or be super famous to create your career on social media or to, you know, bolster more revenue or, you know, increase sales or increase agency in the space. So, so what I tell entrepreneurs all the time is like, if you're a top entrepreneur in the Hudson Valley, in New York, on the East Coast, in the world, just start telling your story.
Yeah. And here's the thing too, viral is kind of a buzzword. It's a little clickbaity. That's why we use it, you know, but I will be the first to say, and I think you can attest to this, is that going viral and having a lot of followers has inherent value to it. When you reach that 1 million follower mark, it's like, oh shit, that guy's got 1 million followers, right?
It's the vanity metrics.
Yeah, it's like, oh, it's that TikTok guy, you know? And then it goes into that identity. Now you're that guy. Now you're that girl.
But
right?
I think all that it is, or you want to, you can.
I was going to say there's also levels to it. Like for me, I'm globally known for hypnosis. You don't have to be globally known to go viral or to be famous in your niche or in your hometown or in your region, you know? But I do think there has to be an identity and a motive of going viral at whatever scale is right for your business. For me, it's globally. For the next person, it might be their town. For the other person, it might be in their tri-state area, let's say. But if you narrow that down to what is the motivation, it's increasing your reach to as many of people in your target audience as possible.
Yep.
That's it.
Yep. Because when you, and because what people miss on that point is the relationships part, which you focus so heavily on. The only reason that 1 million followers makes the most sense for somebody to increase their revenue, their sales, their engagement is because then it gives you more statistical chance of having more people who want to engage with you. There goes the money bell. No, leave that on. I love that shit. But to have 1 million followers means all it means is that you have more likelihood of people who want to interact with you and develop relationships with you.
Yeah.
It's all good to get 1 million views and 1 million followers, but how are you building those relationships? So when people miss the mark, where people miss the mark on a viral hit or a lot of followers is, really trying to genuinely connect with those people.
Mm-hmm.
Connect with them through a post, connect with them through messaging, connect with them on a genuine level, because no one knows who you are. So if you can connect with those people, listen, the first 10,000, 20,000, 30,000, 100,000 people that follow you online, they think they know you.
Yeah.
They're in your network. There's 300,000 people in this community. So I say that to say, respond to your comments, send people DMs, talk to people, and find out genuinely what's going on with them. And then sure, when you're getting blown up and your phone's ringing off the hook, yeah, you're going to have to limit your access, the access that people have to you. Mm-hmm. But you have to really genuinely connect with people. And that's what separates the, super successful from the stagnant.
And like you just said, and this really matters, is relationship. It's like a normal relationship. Like, yeah, you might hook up with the person on the first date, but then it might ruin your credibility. You might be seen as not a long-term partner if that's the case. If I ask for the sale too quickly, I might get it, but it doesn't mean I'm building relationship with my audience and the people that I'm serving. Like at any given point, I could go onto my stories, post a story, and probably make $1,000 in a couple minutes just by selling one of my products or my services. Every day I could do that. The problem is the longevity of that is not focused on relationships. It's not focused on connection. And so that'll die out fast. I can make a lot of money on the front end, but long-term I'll lose ROI. The infinite ROI glitch is on harboring relationships first.
That's right.
And that's it.
Yeah. Yep. And how can you provide value to someone? That's what we do. Cause really the secret sauce to content creation, it's not content creation. It's legacy building.
Yeah.
And how do you become a partner to someone's legacy? Mm-hmm. You become an undeniable asset in a partnership. You become someone who someone can bounce ideas off of. In certain scenarios, I know someone's story better than they do.
Yeah. Well, that's the thing too. When you see you're never relating to the product or service, you're relating to the message. Look at the Apples of the world, the Nikes of the world, and the identity that they speak to. So they're speaking to the person that's watching, they're speaking to their identity, or at least a part of their identity, or who they want to become. And so the person watching the advertisement or the ad or the post or whatever is relating at an identity level. Not really like, oh, this product's, going to be good for me in whatever way, not the feature. It's more the benefit of it from a subconscious or emotional perspective.
I say this all the time. Nike doesn't talk about the thread count. Apple doesn't really sell on the technology and the hardware and the chips and the right. Nike sells you on being a winner. Mm-hmm. and the feeling of being an athletic champion. Mm-hmm. And Apple sells innovation, being revolutionary, changing the world through their ideas. And it speaks to exactly what you're talking about, which is an emotional response.
Yeah. And people buy emotionally first and then logically later. So it's important to appease to someone's emotional side in your content and then logic after that. So it's probably 80% emotion, 20% logic is probably the most important thing. And this is where a lot of content creators go wrong, is they post a lot of educational content, which they think is good because they're providing value, but they're speaking strictly to the logical, analytical side of someone's mind and not the emotional side. So you have to weave in both, primarily emotional, combined with the educational component. So see, these are some of the things we're going to talk about in the 9-day viral creator course, because there is an art to the strategy as much as there is impact in the mindset that's needed.
Mm-hmm. And being yourself, because people are going to resonate and connect with you first.
Exactly.
That's why, you don't buy a car from a catalog. I mean, you decide which one you might want, but you really make that purchasing decision with a human.
Yeah.
Sales.
Yep.
If people were buying based on the product, the sales industry wouldn't exist. Mm-hmm. And the same thing goes for social media. So if you're a business owner and you're posting on social media, and let's say you're a restaurant and all you post is pictures of food, you're probably not going to do as well as the restaurant owner who posts pictures of people with food, because people buy from people. And that's just like an inherent, instinctual human element.
Well, and we could go on down a whole rabbit hole here about the motives behind marketing and products and stuff, but it's like most of the time you're buying it because what it can get you from a perspective of other people, meaning like someone who buys a Gucci bag, and we've known this for a long time, it's not really that much better quality than some other no-name brand, as we're actually finding out very recently with all the stuff coming out from China. But they're getting it because of the perception of what that means, what people are going to think. Still when I drive my G-Wagon, I'm still thinking like, who's looking at me at the red light? And that's a lot of ego-based. It's that need for validation and acceptance that's driving that purchase. So when you're selling something, whether it's like the siding on your home or, I know you work with the solar guys, right? A lot of them will talk about their neighbor.
All the time.
Right?
Yes.
Because they're appealing to the person they're talking to's need for validation and acceptance from a community perspective. And so that's a little mindset tweak to figure out how can I make it so that there's a benefit to my product or service that appeals to the person's need for community validation and acceptance. That's why I often say, I was like, if you want to learn how to manifest so fast, your friends and family will think you're doing something illegal. I'm appealing to the fact that someone wants to manifest something to get a emotional reaction out of their peers.
Mm-hmm. If you're in business at all, especially like in a local community, and you're working, you're missing out every minute. You're missing out on an opportunity to create FOMO. If you do anything, you could be in beauty and aesthetics, you could be a videographer, you could be a restaurant owner, you could be an online coach, you could be, in advertising. Every step of your day is content with people. So if you're working with a client, every interaction with a client needs to be put out, because then you're creating a community around what you're doing, and you're creating FOMO for people who aren't engaging with you. That's our secret sauce is Q29, is like, not only do we, give people great content for themselves to use, but then we're also putting out content of that person on our own platforms so that everyone knows that we work with everybody, and then everybody wants to be everybody. You know what I mean? It's interesting.
Well, what you're doing too, in a very artful way, is like a passive testimonial almost, right? So when you post about us doing this session today, I'm not giving you a direct testimonial, but someone's seeing that I'm working with you, which is kind of,
right.
There's power in that. Yeah.
That is what it is. And also because I love the people I work with. I'm at the point where it can be selective with who I work with. So I'm going to promote this shit because I love it, and I feel like a co-creator. And like we inherently develop relationships with the people that we're sitting across this table from. And we're only really choosing to work with people that we really like. So,
and your audience sharing and credibility sharing and trust sharing,
right?
which is another level to all this.
Yeah. So, I mean, but that's what entrepreneurs and content creators should be doing. It's like, everything is content. Everything is content. It doesn't need to always be perfect. Actually, it shouldn't be perfect. These full-length podcasts are never perfect. When you see the reels come out, sure, like they're cleaned up. Step one of our cutting process is cut for clarity. But you got to be putting stuff out there every single day, man. And that's what hopefully people are going to connect with this in this. And then, through our course that we put together, people are going to take more value away from it.
Yeah. And I guess it's important to end on the fact that we still haven't figured it out, right? People watching this or listening, we talk about every week, we got 300, 400 views. And I don't like using the word only, because if we had 300 or 400 people in the studio right now, I'd be like, oh my God, that's a lot of people.
Right.
But for me and the content that I've created already over the past few years, it is a small amount of views. But does it stop us from getting in here week after week and chopping it up? No, of course not, because we're learning and refining, and we're failing fast, and we're reiterating on what is working, and we're deleting what's not working. And with that, I mean, I would hope that people would comment on this video, or if they're listening on a podcast platform, find the video on YouTube and comment on it, because that's helping us, and ask questions. What you like, what you don't like, let us know. And then definitely look out for that 9-day viral creator that Bryce just found out about. It's probably the most powerful court, and I'm not using that to exaggerate it. I am a little bit, but this is the first time I've ever created something that has a specific result. So the result is you are going to reprogram your subconscious mind. It's going to then have a direct impact on how you show up on your social media, and that's going to have a direct result on how much money you make in your business. And so it's going to be a tremendous value, and it's going to be some things I've never shared publicly on this podcast, on my content. We're going to do a deep dive.
Oh, we're going in.
Yeah.
You heard it here first.
Yeah.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you so much for watching this video. I really appreciate you trusting me with your time. And if you love this content, you want to check out more of it, then you're going to want to watch one of these other videos above. We've got a bunch of great content and videos on hypnosis, subconscious reprogramming, and general mindset philosophies, techniques, and methods. So check those out. And also, if you haven't done so already, make sure you grab my brand new hypnosis app. It's called MINDMOD. Has audios for everything from success to weight loss to even quitting smoking. It's all on there. So when you click the link in the description below, you get a free 7-day trial when you download today.